got you.
Session with Chris. If you have questions for Chris today, it would be really good if you would leave your question in the chat, but most importantly, if you could just let us know where you are, either in Australia or internationally, what sort of town or region you're in, and that will help Chris to tailor his answers to your situation. We are streaming live on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and TikTok today, and we will certainly be watching all of the chats on each of those platforms for any questions that come in. So I might make a start. I'll just check through. I know we've just started. Chris, while we're checking for new questions, do you have anything that you want to say to people?
Okay, we had a long cold winter and a long cool spring and an early cool summer, and then we had our hottest couple of days in a couple of years, and lots of people have had plants dry up and shrivel up, and it's because people have maybe forgotten how to water, or they're not used to watering in such a hot, dry environment as what we've recently obtained. And I'll just talk a little bit about watering. First of all, if you come into our nursery, we've just had, last week we had 2 of the hottest days in many years, and if you come through our nursery you'll find the plants look absolutely fabulous, and the reason is, the first secret of surviving that really hot sort of dry windy weather like we had is the day before the real heat hits, you water everything thoroughly. I reckon that's the absolute key. And so even on that hot day, if you don't quite water it properly or water it well, you'll find it'll get through that nasty hot day that you've got. So watering beforehand, watering a day beforehand or even 2 days before a bad heat wave is a great idea, and water really, really thoroughly. Then the other thing, these are just a couple of quick hints about watering, because watering is an issue for lots of people at the moment. They've got things that are drying out and they need to water. And so the next sort of big thing is that if plants have dried out, so you come home and the plants on the deck or something look a bit wilty, looking dry, the ground around them is bone dry, you forgot to water them this morning, they're in trouble. So the first thing I do is I spray the leaves, because what happens if the plants, if you spray the leaves, the plants that have run out of water in the ground and the leaves are wilting, when you spray the leaves with water, it stops them from drying out any further. So you're immediately putting the brakes on the drying out process by spraying the leaves. And the next thing you do is you give them a quick little water, then you leave them for half an hour and you come back and give them a big water. And it's so much better than, it's a funny thing, you can do a big water right at the start and the plants don't really it doesn't go in, it sort of runs out the top, it runs over the side, but it doesn't really go right through it. So the first thing is a little water, not too little, but a little water, and then leave it for half an hour and go for the big soak. And then for instance, you've got a tree, like you might have a birch tree or a maple tree, and the leaves are starting to turn yellow and drop off because it's dry down deep. Well, what I would do for so where you've got trees that are drying out down deep, you need to get water. Like trees have their roots down 1.5 to 2 meters in the ground, you need to get some water in nice and deep. What I do is I'll apply soil wetter, and soil wetter is an agricultural detergent that helps water to go in. I'll apply soil wetter, and then what I'll do is I'll use like a soaking hose, and I'll use it for say half an hour a day, and use it for a whole week and get that water down nice and deep. Or I'll get a hose dripping. I'll get a hose just dripping, and I'll leave that hose dripping for 12 or 14 hours with some soil wetter in the system, and you can get the water down right deep and save that tree. So that's a couple of, and then probably last of all, a lot of people, what they have for watering, like a real lot of people that have come to me with a watering problem in the last week or so, when I've talked to them, it turns out that they've got one of those little orange or yellow or blue guns that you have, a little gun that you pull the trigger on and the water squirts out. And what people don't realise is that gun could be better described, instead of a water trigger, it could be better described as a water brake. And what it does, that hissing noise that it makes is the noise that it's doing to stop the water from coming out of the hose. Whoever designed it so that not much water would come out of your hose. And so what happens is that, and what I say to people, I say, take that gun off and just use your finger. And you get all conduct a little experiment. If you've got one of those guns and you're using that for watering, get a 10-litre bucket, put the gun in the bucket and fill up the bucket and time it. And I bet you that in most places it'll take between 1 and 1.5 minutes to fill a bucket. Then what you do is you take the gun off and fill the bucket just out of the hose, and I reckon in most places it'll take 30 to 40 seconds to fill the bucket. So you've almost doubled or tripled the flow of water. And so and then all you have to do is use your finger lightly on the end of the hose. Don't put it tightly on the end of the hose or you'll be restricting the flow also, but just have it lightly on the end of the, just outside the end of the hose, so that you break that water jet and it's not, pushing over the flowers or digging up the dirt in your garden. So just break the water with your finger and let it come out, and you've doubled or tripled the amount of water. Now if you've got a dry garden, if you use soil wetter and use your finger over the hose instead of the gun, you'll triple or quadruple the effectiveness of the watering that you're doing. And if you're battling heat and dry, that's what you need to do. So that's a few interesting little bits and pieces on watering.
Beautiful. Okay, so Katie Emily Rickard was first in today, and I know Katie's had to run out mid-live, so best to get her question up first. Katie asks, I have just planted some semi-established latent green conifers. Are there any care tips to ensure that they thrive?
Okay. First of all, if I'd planted them now, I'd put some chemical soil wetter around them, and so that when you water them, you're sure that the water's really getting in around the roots. And even sort of have a little depression. Don't have the roots ball buried down too deep. Maybe make a little depression around it so that the water easily gets the root ball. Use some chemical soil wetter. I reckon Osmocote is really, really good on latent cypress, and keep the grass and weeds away from the bottom. Keep the water up to them, and they'll fly for you. What's great about latents is they grow 365 days a year. So you give them water and fertilizer, they'll grow every day of the year and they'll really move. And people want them to, anybody buying latents, because they're fast growing, most people who plant them want some growth.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got Cedric Rogmans, who says, hello, I want to ask if it's possible to plant lava grass in Germany. So I'm not too sure if somebody has scleranthus, the lime lava, in Germany growing it, because it is an Australian native plant.
Yeah, I reckon it is. Basically, Australia's a lot hotter in the winter than Germany, but the lime lava grows up in the mountains, up above the snow line in the mountains, where minimum temperatures could be -15, -16 at different times. So it's going to take your German winter, and I would certainly, don't go too mad. Don't plant thousands of them or anything like that. Plant a few, see how you go, and I think it could grow there. And it's a beautiful plant, really lovely Australian native.
It's a favourite around here, I think.
Yeah. In fact, we should get a lime lava and show it to everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, we'll show you. Lime lava. It's a really beautiful Australian native that grows up above the snow line, and it's one of the most consistently popular plants in the whole nursery.
Yeah, that's true. So many people, when they come in, they ask about the lime lava.
Oh, nice. Give us a nice big one, yeah.
Oh, big. Yeah. Okay. Now, sorry, Cedric has got another question. I'm just doing a little bit of a search here before I answer.
Here's a lime lava here, and it's a lovely moss-like green mound. It's not a moss, and the main thing that lime lava loves, it loves loose soil, plenty of water, a little bit of fertilizer, and hot sun. It loves the hot sun.
Yeah.
But in winter, it's buried in snow, and it doesn't mind that either.
Which, with climate change, could actually be a really good thing in Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something that's worthwhile considering if it is available in the horticulture industry in Germany. Now, Chris, this secondary question, so this is a two-parter. So I think you've covered the climate aspect of the question. And is it possible to order Diffalayer Grey Eye at our store, and I've just taken the time to have a look on the national network to see if it's something that's available to us. That's something that they call the skeleton flower. So Chris, I'm going to put it up so that you can see it. That's the skeleton flower.
Wow.
Yep, and no, it is not something that's currently in production and available in the network here.
Right.
Or in our nursery industry here. So
Yeah.
no. Okay, so I will just double check. Oh yes, and the last question, as part of that little group of questions, was, are you at the IPM, the International Plant Convention in Essen?
No.
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 Definitely the biggest in Europe for the nursery trade. So Cedric, thanks very much for joining us, and thanks for asking that question. All right, let me have a look over at TikTok here. Quite a lot of questions popping in today, so welcome everybody if you've just joined. If you have just joined, we're taking questions. Chris is taking your questions today. We're taking those questions through the chat on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Just need to know if you ask a question, where you're based, so that Chris can tailor the answers to your local situation. So Charlie Picolek has asked, what's your favourite low maintenance pollinator and annual pollinator? And Charlie's after heavy reseeding.
Right. Pollinator for what?
I'm not too sure, but I would say something that attracts a lot of insects would be your bracteanthus.
Right. Yeah.
Which reseed very easily.
Yeah.
But you just got to make sure you don't buy a sterile variety. But we don't know what the pollinator is for. So maybe Charlie, if you could pop it back in the chat, which pollinator you're trying to target. So maybe just think just generally about if you common pollinators.
Yeah.
What would be your favourite low maintenance annual?
Annual pollinator.
Maybe a perennial perhaps, or something that's going to be more stable in the garden.
So something that really brings the bees around. I noticed I love Shasta daisies, and Shasta daisies really seem to bring on the insect activity. I remember my mum had big patches of them all through our large garden, and they were always full of all sorts of insects, not just bees, but all sorts of insects.
Yeah, definitely. And I've certainly on Shasta daisies, I've certainly seen bees, flies, hoverflies, beetles, all
everything,
sorts. Even flower spiders.
Really?
Yeah. Have you seen the diverse range of flower spiders that we have in Australia?
No.
It's amazing. I took a year out to spend every day in my garden, and I wrote about it this is quite a few years ago, and every day I was out there with a little my macro lens, and I was taking photos of every insect that I could find on my plants.
Wow.
And the highest diversity I had in my garden was actually spiders, but the flower spiders in particular. Some amazing colours.
Wow. Yeah, but anyway, you're just thinking across all the plants I've seen over the years, the Shasta daisies seem to attract every sort of pollinator.
Yeah. All right. So Charlie, I'll have a look down in the chat and see if you come back to us. We'll revisit that if you do. All right. So Georginal, how long should I water star jasmine? And the question has a question mark and then a space, and it says 2 minutes question mark.
I reckon that. Okay, let's see. Chinese star
Georgial, and also Georgial is in Cronulla. I planted my star jasmine under the pergola. How often should it be watered?
Okay, I reckon growing in the ground, growing in a pot in warm weather, you'd water it every day. But growing in the ground, in Sydney, sort of probably a sandy soil, I reckon a really good deep soak, not 2 minutes, a really good deep soak, so sort of a slow flow of water, a really good deep soak, twice a week in summer, once a fortnight in winter, once a week in spring and autumn.
Okay.
But a deep soak, a slow deep soak is what you need, and because they have a fairly deep root system, and you want to get that water in nice and deep.
So if we're talking in pots, you had one of those spray guns, You'd give it a water, go away
I'd
for 10
throw the
minutes.
spray gun in the rubbish, and I would I would use my finger over the end of it and get a bit of water out, and I'd probably, what I'd do is I'd water all my plants quickly, leave them for half an hour, come back and give them a big soak. And but if it was in the garden, I might leave the hose dripping on it for a few hours and do that twice a week in the heat of summer. But a nice deep soak twice a week in the heat of summer.
Okay, beautiful.
And I'd also check and make sure some of those sandy soils in Sydney might not accept water very readily. You might even consider some soil wetter if the water's not going in well.
And with the soil wetter, you prefer the granular type?
Look, either of them work. The granular type's just convenient. You just grab it and throw it on, whereas you don't have to mix it up in water and muck around. So both of them are very good. Either liquid or granular is very, very good. I just find the granular handy, and I prefer to use it myself.
Okay, beautiful.
But I wouldn't criticise the liquid one.
Okay, so Crazy is on TikTok and says hello. Any tips on establishing a cut leaf mint bush in my garden? And the cut leaf mint bush is the Prostrantha incisor. And the question comes from Wollongong.
Right, I would reckon that would have to be one of the easiest plants. Like the key thing would be to plant it up the right way, and it'll grow. I found mint bushes. I've never seen a mint bush that was hard to grow. They do dig a nice big hole, mix in a bit of potting mix, bit of soil wetter, you can't go wrong, a little bit of Osmocote, back on that watering, like how long should, I remember one time, sometimes when people have a terrible garden problem, I'll go out and have a look. We call it a garden inspection. And I had one chap, and this chap was he was a weatherman. He was on TV. He was a weatherman on TV, and he'd bought a lot of mop tops, and they were dying one by one. And he thought he had some sort of mop top disease. And I said, look, I'll come and take a look. And because he was very upset and very worried, his mop tops dying one by one mysteriously. And I went there, and he had the most beautiful couch lawn, absolutely perfect, fabulous. And he had these mop tops, and they were dying, established 3-4 years old, and they were dying one by one. And then I looked at them, and I dug a little hole, and once I'd looked down in the ground at all, it was dust. So it was moist on top and dust down deep. At any rate, I said, you need to water them more. And he said, I water them every day. He said, I've got a watering system, I water them every day. And I said, okay. I said, how long do you water them for? He said, 30 seconds. And he said, but I water them every day. And I said, well, look, that's your problem. Have a look here. The top is moist and it's dust underneath. I said, so down where these Robinias have got their roots, they're in the dust. They've got no moisture, and one by one they're dying. I said, what you've got to do, instead of watering for 30 seconds every day, I said, how about you water for 1 hour once a week and get the water down deep? And he did that, and they stopped dying. So it's interesting that some people say they water every day, some people say they water, but if you only water, you've got to water, you sort of got to understand what you're doing. Yeah. And he didn't understand. His lawn looked green, and he thought everything was fine, but down deep, it was just dust.
Yeah, and it's all about hydration, and our bodies are no different, are they?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Because my mum sips little bits of water, and I reckon she gets through about 250 mils a day. But she doesn't realise that she's desiccating herself,
Right, yeah.
All right, so A Blessed Life on Instagram. Hi team, would you recommend a Lily Pilly speed screen or a Magnolia teddy bear along a fence line? It's west facing in Western Sydney. I'm looking for low maintenance and also keen to understand the spacing.
Right, okay. So, and it's for a screen?
Yes, it's for, it's along a fence line. We're in Western Sydney, facing west.
I reckon teddy bears have got beautiful foliage, but they really don't flower much, and they're very, very expensive. They're 3 times the price of most other magnolias, and I think a magnolia is a great screen, a really, really good screen, but I'd be more inclined, like an Exmouth is much faster growing and has beautiful foliage, and it also has lots and lots of big white fragrant flowers, fill your whole garden with fragrance. So there's quite a few different ones that I might consider as a screen. ahead of a teddy bear, because teddy bears are slow growing, very, very slow growing, and beautiful foliage, very few, almost no flowers. And so Little Gem if I wanted something fairly compact, Exmouth if I wanted a bit of speed, but then there's your St Mary's, there's other magnolias that I consider ahead of the teddy bear. And then my favourite lily pilly, if I was prepared for it to grow a bit slow but look absolutely gorgeous, would be a Sublime lily pilly. Sublime. Absolutely superb, gorgeous. And it's sort of an interesting limey green. So you'd have to want that sort of limey green, but you could Google and have a look at it. So my choices would be Sublime lily pilly, and then probably or a magnolia. And I think either one would be really good, high quality. And then let's talk spacing. I reckon Sublime lily pilly, kind of fat and bushy. I reckon 1.2, 1.3 metres. You'll get quite a thick hedge or thick screen really, really fast. I'd say if you went for an Exmouth or a St Mary's or a Little Gem, I'd probably 1.2, 1.4 metres, and you'll get a nice hedge. And if I wanted that hedge to happen real quick, I'd probably go for an Exmouth magnolia. Okay. So Exmouth magnolia for fast, not teddy bear, a Little Gem for something that took a little longer but didn't need as much trimming than that in the end. And if I wanted big white fragrant flowers, I'd go for Exmouth.
Okay, beautiful. All right, now let me find my place again. So, okay, right, we've got quite a few questions here on Facebook as well. Hi, mate. Adam Breers writes, "Hi, mate. What's your opinion of Italian buckthorn, which I preface by saying is considered here in Victoria and South Australia certainly as well, to be a very invasive, noxious weed?"
I don't know it actually.
Italian buckthorn is a ramus species.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we might just say leave that as it's a weed.
Well, actually, what can we find out about it?
Look, it's certainly it's fast growing, it's hardy, and it has been widely planted in Australia, but it's highly invasive, which is why in coastal areas in Victoria and South Australia, national parks and state parks are finding it quite challenging to eradicate and get out of the system.
Right.
Because it's quite vigorous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not is it thorny?
I think it's actually a little bit like an ilex in that it's got spiky foliage.
Yeah, or it's not the African boxthorn, is it?
No, not the African boxthorn, which is also a weed here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. If you go to King Island, you'll find the boxthorn everywhere.
Yeah, we've got it here in the grasslands behind us.
Have we really?
Yeah, behind where the ring road is, between here and the ring road. Yep, all the way through past Craigieburn. It's really invasive.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I hope, but I will say, when I'm out there doing the woody weed whacking out in that grasslands, I do find that it's very good bird habitat. So
really?
As much as it's a weed and it's problematic in our ecosystem, it is actually providing really good habitat for very small birds. So that's a sign to us that we need to plant really spiky foliaged native plants or indigenous plants out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that provides real shelter for the birds.
So apologies for that, Adam. Probably couldn't give you the information that you might have been after because it's not something that we're overly familiar with here. All right, so Christy says, "Hi, by mulching around initial planting of ground covers like snow in summer, will this stop it from spreading?"
No.
No.
Particularly I really like most of your I'm diverging slightly, but most of your potting mixes that you buy or get in pot plants and things like that are somewhere between 30 and 70% pine bark. And that's because things seem to grow good in pine bark, so people use it in the potting mixes, and there's lots of it available in Victoria.
Yeah.
And so, as a consequence, pine bark is I love pine bark as a mulch and because they use the potting mix, stuff grows in it. So what you'll actually find is that your spreading plants, like your snow in summer, are going to spread beautifully through pine bark.
Yep.
Whereas say that those wood chips, those black wood chips or those red wood chips, what I hate, they remind me of radioactive waste.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Those red wood, I don't hate them, but those wood chips are not so good for plants to spread through.
Yeah.
Whereas your pine bark is like it's like a vehicle that they can use.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks very much for that. So Tanya White is on Facebook. Tanya's in Central Victoria. What would you recommend to plant either side of a new brick path? Something to separate from the existing grass and something to sit a little higher than the grass and the path. Most likely no bigger than about a foot each side and about 3 meters long.
Okay, Central Victoria, you're going to want something that contrasts the grass in colour, you know, like to go on either side of the brick path. So I'm thinking Nandinas, great source of colour, and you could go for a Nandina Moonbay or a dwarf Nandina, but if you Google them, you'll see that they're beautiful red colouring, particularly in the winter. What I say, like Victoria can look quite cold and miserable in the winter, and my dad had this giant driveway at one stage with red Nandinas up either side, and as I turned in and looked at it, I thought this actually warms the landscape, this redness warms the landscape. So, but Nandinas, great, low maintenance, easy to grow plants, fairly cheap to buy. Or the other thing that comes to mind is Coprosma. And you've got purple ones, we've got golden ones, we've got red ones, you've got pink ones, you've got all different coloured Coprosmas, and you could even use a couple of different ones. I did a garden design yesterday, and I used pink Coprosma. I used one pink Coprosma and 3 gold ones, and then another pink one and 3 gold ones and a pink one, but basically Coprosmas can be trimmed so they don't get too tall, and they're as tough as a cactus. They'll take for inland Victoria, they're going to take your powerful frost in the winter, and they're going to take your ridiculous heat in the summer and the wind and the dry, and they'll basically take the works, as will a Nandina. So Nandina or Coprosma, great compact bushes to put a bit of alternative contrasting colour between the lawn and the brick path.
Yep.
And I think what might determine which one you chose might be the colour of your brick.
Okay. Yep. That's a very good point. Because you want to find a little bit of contrast or harmony with the brick.
Yeah, harmony between the brick and the lawn, you know.
Yeah.
So I unless I saw the brick, I wouldn't actually say which one of those to use.
Yeah. All right. So next we have a lovely comment. It is from Suresh, who is our gorilla. That's right. He said to say, how are you? And send my hellos to Chris. So he said to send his hello to Chris.
Oh, great. Thank you. I think it's the gorilla mating season. He's back in Kenya, isn't he?
Could be, Suresh. All right. So, yes, hello to you, Suresh. All right. So, just have a quick look through here. So Michael Robotham is saying hello from Adelaide. Would love to hear your thoughts on crepe myrtles in half wine barrels. They will be in full sun in the summertime, no sun in winter, and they'll be up against a fence. So I would imagine it's no direct sunlight in winter.
I reckon it'd be hard to find a better plan, because crepe myrtles, basically a lot of things, you put them in a barrel and they get too big. Crepe myrtles will get too big, but crepe myrtles love a trim, and so and the harder you trim them, the better they flower, and the more luscious and fuller the foliage becomes. And one of the features with a crepe myrtle is having a beautiful trunk. So you could trim up the bottom branches so you could see the trunk, and then you could each year crop the top back on the top, crop it back quite hard, and you could have a beautiful mass of flowers on beautiful thick beautiful trunks. Now, I think the key to success would be that each year you give them a really good heavy dose, like possibly 1 to 1.5 kilos of dolomite lime over the top of the barrel in the middle of winter, and then give them plenty of, say, a slow release like an Osmocote or a Nutricote or something like that, but plenty of Osmocote in spring and summer, and dolomite in the winter, and prune them back hard each year. And the thing that I like them because they blossom in summer when not much else is blossoming. Then you've got your autumn colour, But probably the best feature of Ligustrum, we sell hundreds and hundreds of them from our store here, all different colours, but the best feature is that I get a lot of, say, young people who are doing garden design, they've never gardened before, and the feature tree I'm most likely to sell them is your crepe myrtle, and the reason is that they can't kill it.
Yeah.
And I sell hundreds and hundreds of them, and I get almost zero complaints. Whereas a lot of other plants that we sell lots and lots of, you get people come back, oh, they died, oh, this happened, that happened. But I can't remember the last time somebody said one of their crepe myrtles didn't make it.
Yeah, they are a really hardy plant and so good looking.
Yeah.
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 All right, so James has joined us on YouTube, and James has asked, how can I take a tree branch and replant it?
Okay, I guess it's a matter of getting the right sort of tree branch. Like let's see, some tree branches that you could replant is you could replant, say for instance, even right now, go find yourself a weeping willow covered in leaves, chop a branch off it and immerse it in water for 48 hours and the leaves drop off it, then stick it a good distance into the ground, keep it well watered, and you've got yourself a willow tree. And you could do similar things with a poplar tree right this time of year. And then in the winter, there's lots and lots of, like, you can cut a branch, and you've got to do it before the winter solstice. But if you cut a branch off, say, a plane tree, there's lots and lots of different things. And in the old days, they're called hardwood cuttings. In the old days, lots and lots of plants were grown from hardwood cuttings. Elm trees, plum trees, all sorts of trees are grown from hardwood cuttings. But if you wanted to grow a tree right now, go find yourself a weeping willow, chop it, immerse it in water for 48 hours, the leaves all drop off, and then you put a big chunk of it bury a big chunk of it into the ground, keep it wet, and within a matter of weeks you'll have a weeping willow.
Fantastic. It's just as easy as that.
Yeah.
I love
But
it.
the immersion in water, but see what you're doing, the way of propagating a lot of plants, my dad was a really, really great plant propagator, and what he would do is he would try and understand the plants, and so think of a weeping willow. A weeping willow grows on a river, on the riverbank, and the desire of the weeping willow is to make more weeping willows. That's every plant wants to extend itself out, conquer more territory, spread itself out. And so your weeping willow is growing on a riverbank intending to make more weeping willows. So what it does, over millions of years, it works out that when the flood comes, it's fairly brittle, it breaks in the flood. And so bits of it break off and they wash away, and the flood, and they're immersed in water for probably 48 hours on average. And in that time, if you were to look at the willow, the cambium layer expands nearly 10 times as it soaks up that water. And it's preparing to grow, and little root calluses start within days, and it's designed that it washes up on a muddy riverbank, maybe a bit of mud and rubbish grows over it, and then it starts growing, and you've got a new willow tree. So it's been designed over millions of years to spread itself.
Yeah.
And that's why some environmentalists don't like them, because they do that.
Yeah. But they are lovely trees to
they're wonderful
sit under,
trees. But yeah, if you put them on a riverbank, it's likely that you'll cause hundreds over many years. You'll cause hundreds and hundreds of weeping willows downstream.
All right, so we've got Cletus, who is with us on TikTok. Hi, these live streams are really great. Grandpa Chris here is so knowledgeable and passionate about plants, is so lovely. Question, Japanese Photinia as a hedge/screening plant in southern New South Wales. Is that okay, or would a lily pilly be better? Need above 4 metres.
Your Photinia robusta is very hard to beat, and the fact that it's called robusta is a bit of it's Latin for tough. So it's Robinia tough.
Yeah.
Is the proper name of it. And what's interesting about the Photinia is that it has, if you give it lots of water and fertilizer, and they love chicken manure, if you give them lots of water and fertilizer, I've seen people grow one that was 35 centimetres tall to 2 metres in a year. Mm-hmm. And then once you've achieved that screen or windbreak that you want, and they're frost hardy, they're heat hardy, drought hardy, all sorts of things, if you just put them out and don't water them or anything, they just sit there. But if you say you had a gaping hole where you needed a screen, and you put them in, and you gave them lots of chicken manure, Osmocote, whatever you want, but they love chicken manure, kept the grass and weeds away, pumped them with water, you can grow a 35 centimetre one 2 metres in a year.
Right,
And then once you've achieved that screen that you want, say a 4 metre one, you probably do it in 3 years. You could grow a 4 metre screen in 3 years with lots of water, lots of fertiliser. Then you can back off. They're not going to die. You can back off and just enjoy them. So basically, and they're a plant. They've been, since I sort of started in the industry with my dad 60 odd years ago, Photinias have been consistently really, really popular because there's never been a bug or a problem that's caused people not to plant them. So they're a really, really reliable plant.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So I'll move on. Dean is with us on TikTok. What's a plant besides succulents, bottle brushes, and roses that can handle a full day of sun? Oh, there's so many.
Oh, we could be here for the rest of the day listing them.
Now,
but
I love it because Dean's put, because we've asked the location and Dean's put front yard. But yeah, I'll have a look. No, we haven't got any answers as to where Dean is located
he's located in the front yard.
No, he's located in the front yard. We just don't know where the front yard is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But look, salvia, lavender. And I've been noticing coming into flower everywhere, you've got your agapanthus.
Yeah.
And agapanthus are known to be a weed, but there's lots of cultivars and things that are really quite pretty, have pretty foliages and things like that. And also there's something very Australian about the normal big coarse agapanthus growing around an old cottage or something like that. There's a lovely feel to it.
Yeah.
So agapanthus, salvia, lavender, rosemary. Give us a couple more.
Oh, a couple more. I mean, there's some amazing Australian native plants like your Coria glabra. I mean, if you want lush vibes, that has got a really vibrant green, very verdant green colour to it.
Tough. And full sun, no problems.
And it grows like gangbusters.
Yeah.
Those scavolas. We love our scavolas here.
Yeah, so scavolas, beautiful ground cover, flower for months and months, available in pink, white, blue or mauve.
Yeah.
Love the hot sun, all day hot sun, not too much water, really, really good.
Yeah, we could probably go on for days, but yeah.
Weeks, in fact.
Weeks, I'm sure we could. Yeah. All right, so let me see what else we've got in here. So, yeah, Cletus is just saying, thanks for your, I love your passion and knowledge, Chris, thanks very much. Falcon, any explanation for my bromeliads flowering a year after planting them from pups?
I think that things often don't flower. Things often don't flower because they go into grow mode. Like when things are absolutely fabulous, there's heaps of fertilizer and heaps of moisture and perfect conditions. Things often go into a grow mode where they don't flower that much. So I guess things flowering early could possibly suggest a bit of stress.
Yeah.
And because actually it's interesting, I noticed that my Boston ivy at home has got 10 times more seed on it than I've seen in any other year, and I'm thinking there must be a bit of stress involved.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, I noticed for the first time my Boston ivy has flowered its socks off.
Right.
And I was looking at the leaves the other day because I only watered my Boston ivy when I first planted it. I've treated it with absolute neglect since. So I noticed it was suffering a little bit from the heat the other day.
Right.
I think it's a bit dry down the soil there.
So I guess stress can cause a plant to flower and seed because it's it's the desire to, sort of think, my God, it's getting tougher here. I might be going to keel over. What I'll do is I'll cast a few seeds off, and it's like the willow trying to survive on the riverbank.
Yeah.
You've got the stressed plant flowering and seeding and trying to have it survive.
Okay, so now we've got MX Urice. I think that's how I pronounce it on TikTok. Do we have any rare crotons?
I
don't think we do, because they're really tropical, aren't they?
Yeah,
Crotons?
they're very, very tropical.
Very tropical. Not unlike heliconias, they grow together beautifully. And I think it's a little bit too tropical for here in Melbourne.
Yeah, and in fact, a lot of people in Melbourne wouldn't even know what a croton is. You might even whack one up online. But crotons are fabulous. I'd never, as a young nurseryman, I went and worked in Mackay for a little while, and I'd never seen crotons. And all of a sudden, there was crotons in every other garden, and they had the most beautiful waxy leaves with all sorts of colourful patterns on the leaves. Really. One of the great beauties of a tropical garden, but we see very few crotons here at all, and they're not really a thing that would survive through a Melbourne winter.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to answer this next question, and you're going to tell me if I got it right.
Yeah.
So, Georgiel has asked, how long is a deep soak? And I would say 30 to 60 minutes.
Right.
What do you say?
I reckon, yeah, or more.
Or
I like or more. I had a big paulownia trees around my house, and their root system is meters deep.
Yeah.
And what it is, I wouldn't water them, and then all of a sudden one day I'd see some yellow leaves forming on my paulownias, and the paulownias have great big leaves, like dinner plate sized leaves. I'd see some leaves yellowing, and I'd go out there and there'd be all cracks around there because it would have sucked all the water out of the ground. Mm-hmm. And I'd get my hose and put it on drip and put it in one of the cracks, and I'd leave it for a whole day.
Yeah, right.
and
Don't tell Melbourne Water that.
What's that?
Don't tell Melbourne Water that.
Yeah, I'd leave it dripping for a whole day because I'd want it, and I might only. And those ones, because they had very deep roots, I'd only water them maybe twice in the summer.
Yeah.
So you could go out and squirt them every day and do nothing apart from annoy them. But what I had to do is I had to get the water down a couple of metres in the ground to actually, because that's where they were getting their water from.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good, because we had a few people say, yeah, that's a good question. All right. So we've got Scott, who's on Facebook. Hello. I've pulled out an ugly yucca, well done, and I'm looking to replace it with something that provides some filtered screening about 2 to 3 metres high. It's clay soil against a picket fence, lots of room to grow, and it's got full sun. Any recommendations from Melton in Victoria?
Okay, I'm going to address, there's two issues here. One is, are yuccas ugly? Right? Now that's an interesting question.
Subjective, it's like art.
Do you know that when yuccas were in fashion, I used to buy them from Dan's Plants wholesale.
Yeah.
And I remember I was selling so many yuccas that he'd send out a convoy of trucks full of yuccas so I could get through the weekend with yuccas, and we'd unload truckload after truckload of yuccas.
Your nursery must have looked yucca.
Yeah, and the thing was that Dan used to trim up his yuccas, and you had beautiful bushy little green heads on them and things like that. And if you've got a great big yucca that you think's ugly, give me a yell. It has to be in Victoria, and I'll come out and I'll groom your yucca, and I can turn any yucca, a big old yucca, into a thing of beauty.
Right.
And I've done it.
And I'm being facetious.
I think that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and yuccas have got such a bad name that people are seeing ugliness even when it's really not there. Like, I even predict that there'll be, when this generation's all dead, there'll be another fashion for yuccas.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm starting to get ready for it now. And
yeah, we do have quite a few inquiries about yuccas. So they're
yuccas are nicely trimmed, a beautifully groomed yucca, and I'll take up the challenge. It'll take about 12 months, and I can make an ugly yucca into a beautiful yucca just by grooming and training it. And I learned all that from dealing with Dan's. And we used to sell beautiful yuccas, and people used to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a nice yucca. But at any rate,
An alternative.
so now that you've decided yuccas are ugly and you've ripped out your yucca, and that's happening to yuccas everywhere. I think that for every yucca that gets planted, 100 are being ripped out. And
we're in Melton, so we've got a very harsh climate there.
So I reckon we were talking about crepe myrtles before.
Yes.
Now, out in Melton, it's hot, it's windy, it's dry, and so a crepe myrtle is going to do wonderfully out there. And in that heat, the hotter it is, as long as you water them, the more they flower. And so a crepe myrtle is going to give you a beautiful blossom, and you can choose your favourite colour. There's light pink, lavender, mauve, sort of almost sort of a cerise reddy pink. There's lots and lots of beautiful ones, followed by autumn colour, and when they get old, they have beautiful patterns on the bark. Very, very hard to beat. So a crepe myrtle could be a great replacement. Now the only thing is that some people might not be happy with that as a replacement because it is deciduous, and some people just don't like deciduous. And earlier on, now an Australian native, a really nice Australian native, and they've been really hard to get, and I've just noticed them creeping back into the nursery now, is your lime magic acacia. Beautiful, and that's a lovely Australian native, and it kind of has that weeping willow. It goes up and comes down, goes up and comes down, comes up and goes down like that. And I've got a fabulous video up online where I found a whole hedge of them that were just out of this world up in Shepparton. So that's
your picture. That's on our website.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It looks like AI.
Yeah, it does, but it's real. I couldn't, and when I found that, I couldn't believe it. That was because I thought that's the nicest planting I've ever seen of them. Now another real favourite of mine, and it's hard to find a good photo of it, is your Agonis burgundy. And what I like about the Acacia Lime Magic and the Agonis burgundy, both of them actually give you more colour and more beauty the more you prune them. And which is the same with your ligustrum. And often you don't want things to get that big. Like that was the problem a lot of people had with the yuccas, they just got bigger, bigger and bigger. And actually I could tell you a funny story about yucca.
Yeah.
When yuccas were at the height of popularity, I went to a garden in California. I can't think of the name of it. A billionaire built it back at the turn of the last century. And anyway, what he did was he used to send a ship down to South America to gather full-size plants and put them on the deck of the ship and bring back full-size plants. And what he did was, back over 100 years ago, he bought a full-size yucca back from South America, and he planted it. And this was when yuccas were at their height of fashion. He planted it in these gardens. I just can't think of the name, but beautiful. It's a couple hundred acres of garden in California. And anyway, this yucca would have a trunk maybe 3.5 meters thick.
Wow.
And it would cover half an acre.
Whoa.
Like that. And I thought at the time, if I took a photo of this and broadly distributed it in Melbourne, nobody would ever plant a yucca again because it grows big enough to cover 2 or 3 house blocks. And
that must have had some age on it.
Yeah, or it was done 100. It would have been the oldest. It would have been the biggest, oldest yucca that they could find in South America 120 years ago.
Amazing.
But it was a great education because even when I've travelled in South America, I've never seen a yucca even half as big as that yucca.
Amazing. And so Scott, I hope that's been helpful. Crepe myrtles and lime magic, acacia lime magics are a good alternative for that spot. Now Chris, very quickly, while Scott is still with us, do you know why Bacchus Marsh is the hottest place in the world?
It's damned hot because it's like a hole. It's a hole and the sun gets trapped in there.
No, it's near Melton.
Oh right, okay. Right.
All right. So we've got quite a few questions still to go.
Yeah.
Are you happy to keep going for a little while?
Yeah.
All right. So we've got Glenn who's joined us on Facebook. Hello, I'm in Melbourne and looking for a narrow tree that can provide shade near the house. Sorry, near a house wall. Wants that coverage in the summer. Wants it to lose its leaves in the winter so that the sun can get through. Something that would max out at about 3 meters and would be easy to trim. Would anything be better than a weeping birch tree? Oh, you're asking the wrong person there.
Okay, yes. Things would be better.
Yeah.
You could plant a yucca. No, I'm joking. The two trees that came to mind while you were reading out that question is your fastigiate hornbeam.
Yeah, beautiful.
Beautiful tree. Grows bigger than 3 metres, but loves a trim, and grows slowly, so it'll be very, very, very easy to maintain at 3 metres in height. Gorgeous tree, beautiful autumn colour, beautiful leaf. Really,
the leaf is beautiful.
Totally aesthetic.
Yeah.
I think, and what it is I think capital pears. A lot of people have planted capital pears. I think a lot of people didn't realise how big a capital pear was going to grow.
And they don't realise how stinky they are.
Yeah, and they've planted them in little narrow garden beds, and they're a bit like the yucca. All over Melbourne, people are starting to remove them. And I've been wondering what the alternative is, and the alternative to your capital pear in narrow containable trees is either a Musashino Japanese elm,
Yep.
and that has fabulous autumn colour, beautiful tree, totally aesthetic. I drove past a little avenue of them in Box Forest Road every morning on my way to work, and I admire them every day.
Really?
Every day I go past and I love them. And if you go up Box Forest Road heading this way, they're in front of the cemetery on the right hand side, just before you cross over the railway line and go onto Sydney Road.
Right.
And anyway, and your Musashino Zelkova, just absolutely they look gorgeous at the moment. They're so lush and green, and their foliage is as beautiful as the Japanese maple. I love Japanese elms, but the Musashino is the capital pear of your Japanese elms. Narrow, upright, and then the fastigiate hornbeam, not the normal hornbeam, but the fastigiate hornbeam, same thing, narrow and upright.
Yes.
And I think.
And if you're on our website looking, we've got it listed as the upright hornbeam.
Yeah. Now, I forever in my garden designs, I'm forever planting weeping birches, but I wouldn't consider them to be very narrow or upright. They're sort of fat and short, and so you could do that, but I would tend to think that the best one is that Musashino Japanese elm or the fastigiate hornbeam.
Yeah.
And both of them are probably a little bit hard. We stock them here. You'll see them on our website, but they're a little bit hard to get generally because I think. To do with doing the garden designs, I probably have a more diverse range of plants that I like to use than the really common stuff that's in every nursery.
Okay, so over to Instagram now. My Beauty Space has asked, what is a good plant to grow behind a pool for privacy, but that isn't climbable?
Okay, I was surprised. I was terrified. We've got a beautiful big tiger grass beside our pool, and we recently had to go through a pool inspection, and I thought they'd tell me to chop it out, and it passed. And now tiger grass has big luscious foliage. It's not technically a bamboo, but it's a bamboo style plant that has no real side branching on it, just kind of like a cane with great big leafy lush things on the top of it. And it's not a towering monster. It probably grows. I think our one is years and years old. It's about 2.5 meters tall.
Yeah.
And it hasn't really grown. It tends to grow out, not up. Once it gets so they'll get up to 2.5 meters quite quickly, and then tend to go out and go bushy. So that would be one. And then the other one would be a giant bird of paradise, also not climbable. So they're two that I use in my garden. A lot of people come in and they want to have a nice garden that's compliant from the non-climbing point of view. So and probably my two favourites in the tall, bit of a tropical feel going near the pool would be your tiger grass and your giant bird of paradise. And giant bird of paradise, a lot of people don't know it. It kind of looks like a banana palm.
It does.
In fact, most people saw one off in the distance. They think it might be a banana tree growing.
Yep. I got stooged by one I saw online the other day. I thought it was a bird of paradise. No, sorry, I thought it was a banana. It turned out to be a bird of paradise.
Right, yeah.
So it confused us all. So Katie is on Instagram, and Katie's got a great question, Chris, and I think this is a really good one for us to entertain. So Katie says, not plant related, but I just adore you, and I've really built a passion for gardening and plants since 2020. Is 33 too old to study horticulture and to get into the industry? It's what brings me joy.
Right. Okay.
And I've got a very good answer for you, but you go first.
Well, I reckon that horticulture is something I feel like I started, as soon as I could walk, I started helping my dad.
Yeah.
and and I was brought up at Mount Dandenong, and next door was a berry farm, and behind that there was a rhododendron nursery, and sort of there was rich people with big beautiful gardens, and basically we were surrounded by gardens and plants, and that was the whole world. And I started learning then, and at 70 I think I'm just starting to get good at it.
Yeah.
But so 33 is not too late, and the way to learn horticulture is to really immerse yourself in horticulture, and which is what has happened to me my whole life. I've been really immersed in horticulture, and I guess I'd be careful about going to school and studying horticulture, because I suspect that some of the people teaching horticulture don't even really quite know what horticulture is, because I've had people here working for me studying horticulture, and they're learning how to sharpen chainsaws and doing all sorts of stuff that didn't really seem like horticulture. And I think that where people struggle with horticulture is that they don't know the difference between, say, there's a difference between being a gardener and being a nurseryman and being a horticulturalist. And I'll just briefly explain what that difference is. And it would be more than what you'd learn in some horticulture courses in a couple of seconds. What it is that your horticulturalist, you can give them, like I'm faced with various problems all the time, and like a sort of problem that a horticulturalist could solve that maybe a gardener or a nurseryman isn't going to solve quite as readily is that say, for instance, there's people migrating from China and Japan and that to Australia, and their new year is in January sometime, and it's really, really hot. Now traditionally they like blossoms.
Yeah.
Spring blossom. They like to have spring blossoms. They go and pick the first blossoms. The first blossoms are just occurring in their neighbourhood. It might be a cherry or a plum blossoming, and that's part of their celebration. Now here in Australia, so what a gardener might do is say, well, there's no spring blossoms around. But a horticulturalist, through using refrigeration and various different techniques, could produce blossoms for spring in January in Melbourne. That's a horticulturalist, where there's a need, and a need could be, there could be a disease in a particular crop, there could be a new fashion in plants, and a new some new aspect of a plant, like, you know, there's a lot of people wanting to plant hydrangeas in the sun, so a horticulturalist could go and create a sun hardy hydrangea. So whatever the need is, and basically the whole wealth of a society is determined by horticulture. So where you had civilizations grew up in the past, like the Aztecs had great horticultural ability. They developed crops and things like that allowed a few people to feed many, and then the many could go off and study philosophy and engineering and various other things and create a civilization. So at the basis of all civilizations is horticulture, and it's that ability to manipulate cells, nature, plants, chemicals, refrigeration, tissue culture, radiation. Radiation is used in horticulture. So basically it's that ability to manipulate those things and solve the problems. And probably the greatest horticulturalist ever was Luther Burbank. And Luther Burbank created the modern wheat, the modern potato, the modern petunia, the modern plum, and I could stand here for the rest of the day. And he put out a set of encyclopedia, and I think that the way to really get in and study horticulture is go and work for a great horticulturalist and get a hold of Luther Burbank's encyclopedia, and there's been nothing ever better written on horticulture.
Yeah.
And you could read a little bit every day, and it opens your eyes to what's possible. And what's interesting about Luther Burbank is that he was in the when he died, he was in the 10 top wealthiest men in America. So he was actually extremely rich, and I don't think he cared about money at all, because he used all of his money for making more horticultural products. And his encyclopedia set must be several thousand pages, and there's 1 to 2 discoveries on every page.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So he was the greatest horticulturalist ever, and to a large extent I believe that more than anybody else he is responsible for the wealth of America today, because he liberated his advances in crop production and things like that, liberated a lot of people from the fields, and also created great aesthetics. He created new types of trees and flowers and things like that. And so as people were liberated from the fields and could take on other sort of engineering and manufacturing and other types of jobs, because a fewer people could feed the many, he created the things that could enrich their life. In fact, he was the at the turn of the last century, he put out the Shasta daisy, and the Shasta daisy was the most loved flower in the world for quite a few years.
Yeah. And still is.
Yeah.
All right, so getting back to Christy, so my feedback for Christy, so something that I think I don't really talk about is that I work for Chris, but I also operate as an industry advisor and a mentor for students through various training institutions. And what I can tell you is that currently in horticulture and landscape design, about 40% of new students are over 30.
Right.
Which is quite incredible. So
Yeah.
it's absolutely not too late for you if you're 33. I've been mentoring some students that are in their 50s. So anytime's the right time, as long as you've got the passion and the interest to learn. All right, so Carmen is in Melbourne and asks whether baby blue eucalyptus can be propagated from branches.
Probably, but you'd need a tissue culture lab and
Yes.
and a real lot of knowledge, and it'd be much easier to try a seed.
Yeah, and I think
or buy a tube.
something like baby blue is better bought, I think, from a nursery, because they've been through the tissue culture process to get that identical replication.
That's right. So the baby blue in the store probably was grown from a branch, but with probably $1 million worth of technology and equipment and knowledge and things like that. So,
all right. So Wassam is in Sydney. With the severe heat in Sydney last week, I have 2 magnolia teddy bears that are badly scorched. They were planted 2 weeks ago. What would you recommend to salvage them?
soil wetter, and soil wetter and sea salt.
And sea salt and a deep water.
And the deep water, yeah.
Maria is also
and actually just and basically for the next heat wave, water well the day before
or 2 days before.
or 2 days before.
Yeah.
Not 2 days, but really I'd have 100,000 to 200,000 plants. I've never counted them all in the nursery. There's plants everywhere here, and it's probably the most heavily stocked retail nursery in Victoria, and I don't think we lost a plant here on that hot day.
No.
And it's funny, the day after they relaxed a bit, and there was one rose bush that didn't make it. But and I was upset about it. I've dunked it in water. I'm hoping it recovers. But
It
anyway,
probably will recover.
yeah. I really like to look after every single plant. But basically, I believe that it wasn't the heat that scorched your teddy bear. I believe it was not watering the day before or the day before that. So next time you see a heat wave coming, use soil wetter. If you're having trouble getting the water in the ground, use soil wetter, but soak them the day before or 2 days before, or you could go 2 days before and the day before, and then water them on the day, and you will make it.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on, Maria is also in Sydney. I bought a house that has lots of established bamboo all over the place. I've cut them down, poisoned them, got a stump grinder in to dig the roots up, but they keep popping up all over the yard. I want to build a small studio in the next few months. Thank you. And I really don't want one growing through the flooring. Any tips on poisoning the new shoots? When I cut the original plants, I drilled holes in the stalks and I poured Roundup in them, blackberry killer mixed with kerosene down them, but they still continue to pop up. Can you give me any tips, please?
Okay, say if you're going to use Roundup to kill bamboo, I think you can, but you wouldn't chop them off and then poison them. Roundup is a systemic poison, and what you need is an active growing plant. So you need to let them grow up, let them shoot, let them leaf, water them, fertilize them, have them absolutely fabulous, and then spray the Roundup on the actual, mix up your Roundup, and don't do it too strong, even though you really, really want to kill them. Follow the instructions and spray it on the leaves, and I'm sure that you would kill it if you allowed them to be active.
Yeah.
And but it sounds like the bamboo really wants to grow there, doesn't it?
Yes, and it also sounds to me like a backhoe could be a useful.
Yeah, and then actually, it's interesting your comment about a backhoe. The other thing that you could do is that if you understood how bamboo works, it sounds to me like what you've got is a running bamboo, and if you understood how it works, so basically your running bamboo has like a clump with shoots coming up, and then it has horizontal canes. And if you could use a backhoe and comb all of those horizontal canes out of the soil, that would be another way of removing it. So basically it's sort of going through the soil and pulling out all the horizontal canes.
Yep.
And that's what's coming back. Like the kerosene, blackberry killer, Roundup, none of it's going to work on chopped up stuff. It has to be on Roundup.
Living tissue.
Yeah, Roundup on living growing tissue.
Yeah.
Or the other way is a backhoe, and comb the soil and comb out. What you're looking for is those horizontal canes. And then when you get hold of a horizontal cane, the canes are only that far under the ground. They're not down very deep. Once you go down deep, there will be no horizontal canes. So don't go down not too deep. Comb out that horizontal cane. And when you get hold of one, pull it up and go right along and pull it right up.
Yeah.
And you'll find little clumps along there. And if you get rid of all of those, so I think understanding that, even go and look online or in an encyclopedia and look at the structure of a running bamboo, and once you understand that structure, like I've done lots of work growing bamboo, and once you understand the structure, you'll find it's fairly easy to get rid of.
Okay, all right, so we're getting the wind up now, so I'm just going to give you one last question, and that lucky person is Jim Georgiadis. Hi, if the top leader split on a forest pansy, can it regrow?
What you'll find with any deciduous tree is that the top leader has what's called apical dominance. Apical dominance is that hormones are sent from the lower on the tree, they're sent up to that tip there, and that becomes the strongest growing tip. So what you do is, if you find another branch, now what you can do is you can get yourself a nice little slim bit of bamboo, and you can tape it onto the tree trunk with a bit of black electrical tie, and then tape it on. And then what you do is you grab another branch that's a young branch that's quite flexible, and you push that branch up, and it becomes the top tip of the tree.
Yeah.
And what will happen is, over 6 months or so, the tree will pump that full of the hormones that create apical dominance, and that'll become your new tip on the tree.
Yeah. All right.
And that could be done with any deciduous tree that's lost its tip.
Wonderful. Thank you all so very much for your questions today. We had so many questions. We actually didn't get through them all, and we could have kept going for another hour, I think.
Oh, okay.
So we will be back same time on Monday for more Q&A, next Monday that is. And but we will also be back on Friday for our flash sale.
Grower Direct flash sale, yeah.
Yep, okay, so 12 p.m. Back on your favourite channel. We will be live at 12 p.m. and we'll have over 100 super hot discounted lines and some really good stock for Chris to show off to you, all right?
Yep.
So we will see you all on Friday at 12 p.m.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.